too shocking there, but that hard, dedicated Trick Room with the Hatterene and the Dusclops able to set it, the Torkoal and the Glastrier available to take advantage of it, the Indeedee to help it out, and the addition of the Venusaur, in case you want to play something a little bit faster with the Chlorophyll. Speaking of Chlorophyll, Torkoal Venusaur available for Felipe as well, but he's got Trick Room options of his own, being able to play with that Porygon 2, and then rounding it out with a Registeel and Landorus, which I can't say it enough, it's been so popular, so impactful in many of these games, so it'll be looking to see if he can execute that as well as some of the other players in this tournament.
It'll be really interesting to see how these two players are navigating the matchup. Both have Trick Room elements as well as elements that work outside of Trick Room. I mean, you were just talking about that Venusaur as well. Felipe has access to the Landorus. So it'll be cool to see which player goes for the Trick Room and which player is going to potentially maybe try and play outside of it.
Maybe both want to play inside it. We won't know until we head on into the game. So let's get this one rolling. Let's keep on trucking through our bracket in losers round 1 with, of course, Ben on our side of the screen. No Trick Room from Felipe's side as he leads off with a Grimmsnarl and a Landorus. And, hey, we've seen this one before. It's Hatterene and Indeedee.
Yeah, the very typical, I would like to Trick Room here start coming out from Ben is going to be facing down against the Landorus and Grimmsnarl, which is not so much of a duo that would like to be in Trick Room.
Well, they don't want to be in the Trick Room at all, but there's so few ways to actually stop the Hatterene and Indeedee setting up the Trick Room as kind of a duo together because of the pressure that the Indeedee can take away from the Hatterene with the Follow Me, the limited options you have at being able to shut down the Hatterene because of Magic Bounce as well, does make it quite a strong duo to go together. You kind of have to try and overwhelm it a little bit and push on as best you can, and something like the Landorus can do that. The Grimmsnarl kind of slowing things down a little bit, maybe saying, alright, you can have your Trick Room, you can set that one up, but at the end of the day, I'm going to be able to take the attacks you throw at me in Trick Room by use of the screens. So interesting options from both trainers, kind of just doing their own thing. I don't think they're kind of trying to shut the other one down too much, but no Trick Room in this turn as the Hatterene immediately decides to Gigantamax. Not something we see all the time.
Yeah, this is a Pokemon that really thrives in Trick Room, not having much speed at all, but looking to just apply this pressure. Helping Hand coming out from the Indeedee as well to be putting up a huge attack. But first is Hatterene having to take a Spear Break and a Rock Slide from the Landorus and Grimmsnarl respectively. Of course, will get a special attack drop, but with that Helping Hand, definitely going to Helping Hand it out here, and it's going to be dishing out a huge attack into this Grimmsnarl to take it out.
The Grimmsnarl not able to take that G-Max Smite, especially after the Helping Hand, and I really like this from Ben, kind of calling the potential play and just saying, you know, I think you're going to just try and stop the Trick Room. I mean, the options to stop Trick Room weren't really there, you know, just trying to Rock Slide, flinch it maybe, and stop it that way. But the Hatterene lands that G-Max Smite, takes out the Grimmsnarl, no screens set up, just a Spirit Break thrown out, and now it's actually over to Felipe to look for a potential Trick Room play with the addition of this Porygon 2. Probably not something it wants to do when you do have that Landorus next to it on the field, but it is an option, something you can play around a little bit later, and you know, you've got to be able to deal with this Hatterene because at the moment that G-Max Smite is going to cause problems, not just damage-wise, but landing those confusions as well.
Really interested to see what the last Pokemon Felipe has on his side. The Porygon 2 is obviously a Pokemon that can set Trick Room as well as utilize Trick Room, so it'd be interesting to see if it's Trick Room sort of ending for Felipe once this Landorus is gone through. But before that, before any Trick Room happens, we are going to be seeing a Dynamax as Felipe is looking to start putting some pressure back onto Ben here, and it will be that Landorus. I mean, it does have to get through the confusion, but other than that, it's a really strong max candidate going forward here.
Dynamax Landorus has been an absolute favourite for a number of trainers in this tournament, even in their region finals, but Ben knows what Pokemon he wants to answer with and looks like very committed to this Hatterene.
Oh, the Landorus hitting itself in confusion, so that's one turn of its Dynamax gone. That's what Ben's looking for. That's the last thing Felipe wanted here. Not being able to capitalize off of it, and Helping Hand boosted attack on to the Landorus here isn't going to be doing the most damage, but it is doing a lot and putting a lot of pressure on a Dynamax that wasn't able to fire back.
That Spirit Break coming in handy from earlier, though. The Spirit Break, of course, lowering the special attack, meaning that it's a little bit harder for this Hatterene to really fire back. And the Max Mindstorm, isn't the largest amount, but the Landorus had to Dynamax there, or else it still would have been felled, so really good heads-up play from Felipe to understand that, but losing out on one of your turns of Dynamax is crazy. We talk about it all the time. You've only got 3 turns. They need to be impactful, and if you can't get through the confusion from the earlier G-Max Smite, you're going to be in a bit of trouble. We did get to see some of Ben's team, though, and there's certainly some interesting ways to play out the end game. So Indeedee just trying to keep things safe, knowing actually it's been a pretty good position so far, and we get to see again. No!
Oh, no, the second turn of Max, and it's going to be hitting itself in confusion yet again. So this is everything Ben can dream of and more. Indeedee takes this tri-attack quite easily, and is just targeting into the Porygon 2 now. I mean, why not? This Landorus is not really doing too much here, and that's so unfortunate for Felipe. That's 2 turns of his Dynamax. He could have had such a strong lead going in with this Landorus, but it's all lost now.
Third time's a charm. He's got to be able to attack this time, right? That Landorus has now been out of action for 2 turns because of the G-Max Smite, and Ben seeing just how impactful that can be throughout the course of the game. Now Ben is back to the regular form, no more Gigantamax for this Hatterene. May be able to set up something a little bit later, and as we can take a look in the menu, hovering, knowing of course what he has in the back, knowing how the rest of his game plan plays out. Will have to be careful. This Landorus, if it gets to attack, will be moving first. Will be able to throw down a whole lot of damage, but the Indeedee should be dealing with that quite comfortably. Or not comfortably, but just keeping it away. And oh, third time is a charm.
Thank goodness. I mean, you can't be set back even more than Felipe already has been. And the opportunity to hit a max, let it be here, into the Indeedee. Critical hit, not really thinking that was going to matter. What does matter is that special attack drop onto the Hatterene, though, as well as just taking the Indeedee out of the equation. Porygon 2 with a tri-attack here. Not able to quite pick up the Hatterene, though, as it does get the opportunity to go for that Trick Room once and for all.
Now, the Hatterene doing exactly what it needs to do throughout the course of this game, and the back pairing certainly interesting when you look at them. Definitely keen to get up the Trick Room for the Torkoal, but I'm not sure the Venusaur is going to appreciate it all that much. And this Venusaur has access to Chlorophyll, but won't have access to the Gigantamax either. So a lot of pressure riding on this Torkoal to see out the rest of this game, I think. The Hatterene there could have been throwing out spread moves, could have been throwing out damage, and you could have played a Chlorophyll combination in the back with the Torkoal. The Torkoal, though, in a great position to throw out attacks now, will get control of the weather, and there's not really so much that Felipe can do to switch up that weather. Does have a Torkoal of his own, does want to play in that as well, so probably not too worried about the sun going up. But a lot of things going on here for Ben, putting himself in a solid position to try and deal damage with the Torkoal. Of course, does have to respect that Porygon 2. Porygon 2, very hard to take down with that Eviolite. Would be able, if Felipe doesn't want it, to potentially reverse that Trick Room. So, gotta be respectful of that.
Of course, the Porygon 2 did take a nice chunk of damage from the Hatterene in its G-Max form, though, so definitely in a more reasonable position to try and double into it and try and take it out. And a X-boosted, Sun-boosted Torkoal is just the way to do that, is it takes both of these Pokemon down. I mean, Torkoal is such a force to be reckoned with, and it's going to be bringing Felipe down to his last Pokemon.
We are going to get to look at the last Pokemon from Felipe's side, see if he's able to find any win condition here. But in a Trick Room against the Torkoal, I think he's going to be in a good position. Of course, it is a Torkoal on Felipe's side as well. That's going to really appreciate the Trick Room. But, Ben's has been putting in a whole lot of work so far. It is going to be single target attacks. It really could come down to who's actually the slower Torkoal and who's moving first. Ben may be forced into switching things up a little bit here, moving things around, because the choice specs lock him very comfortably into Eruption. They do get to know about each other's movesets. There's no secrets from each other there, and there could be a bit of a mind game when it comes into this one. So a lot riding on these last couple of turns, but of course a 3 Pokemon to 1 advantage means Ben is still in the driving seat.
It is a 3-to-1 advantage, but one of those is a Venusaur and Trick Room, and the other is an 8 HP Hatterene. So if anything could do it, it would be a Torkoal. And Turtle from Ben's end just swapping out, bringing in the Venusaur to really bear the full brunt as Felipe firing off an eruption of his own, taking out both of Ben's Pokemon to having a Turtle versus Turtle showdown.
Oh yeah, we're going to be getting down to just Torkoal versus Torkoal and seeing who is essentially the slower Torkoal and able to capitalize on this Trick Room a little bit better. Of course, Ben kind of forced into the switch. There's a difference in the item between these two. The Torkoal on Ben's side has the Choice Specs, and the Torkoal on Felipe's side has the Charcoal. So that does mean that, you know, those eruptions doing a whole lot more, but less damage actually on something like the Earth Power. Felipe's moving first. Let's see how this one plays out. Not enough damage there, and now Benz gets to fire back with the benefit of the Choice Specs.
All down to how much this is going to do. It doesn't pick up the KO, though. Felipe's Torkoal lives on just a couple of HP, and we saw Felipe's Torkoal move first last time, implying it is slower, maybe a speed tie, maybe it's not, so it's really going to come down to how they're trained, but unable to pick up that KO and clean up the game. It's been in such a dangerous position.
Not enough with that, but the Torkoal moving again first on Felipe's side, confirming I think it's definitely slower, taking the knockout with the Earth Power. The Choice Specs just falling short. Ben played it very, very wisely, switching out so he had access to the Earth Power, but it wasn't enough even with the Choice Specs. And that weird team selection of bringing the Venusaur while you're playing in Trick Room, just causing a couple too many problems. It switched in and got immediately knocked out by the Eruption. So back to the drawing board, I think, for Ben when it comes to selecting those Pokemon.
It was so close, but setting Trick Room and then just being undersped by the opposing Torkoals, definitely a tricky position to be putting in. Of course, both players can play in Trick Room, so you always have to watch for that if setting your own. Of course, you get an advantage, but you have to make sure it doesn't come in the end game to where you get undersped and your own Torkoal being taken out. It was so close, though, that like there was just a couple of HP that Torkoal lived on, so it was fantastically played. It'll be really interesting to see how the game 2 is being played, because I'm sure we're going to see some adjustments.
Ben, as a team so committed to Trick Room, has been, you know, trying to set that up every game. I liked where he set it up in game number 1. I really liked that he waited and used that Hatterene, of course, making some really good headway with the G-Max Smite, being able to handle the Landorus a lot better, certainly helping out there. But when the Trick Room set up and, you know, you're just able to get that kind of Torkoal in on Felipe's side, take advantage of it, and actually Felipe, you know, in a good position by not having the Choice Specs. Ben was forced to switch out, had to get away from that Eruption that was locked into, and not being able to get away from that, now you're down just to a 1v1 because of the forced switch into something like the Venusaur, which just got felled immediately. So the Choice Specs kind of hurting him a little bit there. If it had got the knockout, obviously it would have been a different story, and we'd be singing Choice Specs' praises. But the adaptability and the mobility through your moves that Charcoal provides, really helping Felipe out there. So these small nuances when it comes to team building can be so impactful. And don't forget, loser of this game goes home. Still taking some prize money home with them, but that's the end of their tournament run. So a lot riding on this. Ben needs to start bouncing back.
Of course, so let's hop into game 2 to see if he can bounce back with that Torkoal. So right off the bat, we're not going to see an adjustment here coming out. Felipe opting to start with that Landorus and the Grimmsnarl yet again, but big adjustment coming out on the opposing side. No Hatterene, instead we are speeding things up with the Venusaur.
The Venusaur in a better position, not trying to play in the Trick Room, and we saw nothing from it in the last game, so really kind of nice to see it get a turn. And there's a potential switch available here, right? Just being able to switch into that Torkoal and immediately get the Chlorophyll going, you know, get those speed boosts, and maybe even land something a little bit audacious, like a Sleep Powder. You know, a Sleep Powder onto a Landorus as it Dynamaxes, causing so many problems when you, again, don't get to use your Dynamax turns. Felipe played out of that one really well. You know, didn't get to attack for a couple of turns, did get to deal with the confusion after that, though, and being able to lock down that Dynamax, I think, is rather important for any trainer, really. There's the switch in to the Torkoal, and now if this Venusaur hits its Sleep Powder, this could be a very different game.
Yeah, Ben doing what he can to try and slow down at the max. It worked so well in the last game. First, though, this Grimmsnarl wanting to try and slow things down as well. Going to take the opportunity to set up a light screen, and Venusaur is going to connect that Sleep Powder. So right off of the bat, this Landorus is being put to sleep, but Felipe opting not to max this turn. It means that at least he's not wasting the max turns like last turn was wasted from that confusion. So it's not the greatest situation, but it could be worse.
It could be a lot worse. If he was Dynamax, that would have been a huge waste, and I like that Felipe held that, kind of respected it, and said, actually, the Sleep Powder play is here, not going to throw it down until I've got an Awake Landorus and see how that one goes. So really, really like that play from Ben as well, understanding what a threat the Landorus can be, why it's one of the most used Pokemon in this tournament, and being able to really deal with things that way. So smart heads-up play from both trainers. Nice adaptation from Ben, putting him in a much better position. And now, things changing up from Felipe's side. Felipe, even while it's asleep, is so committed to this Dynamax Landorus that he's just going to Dynamax it, and I think hope he wakes up after that one turn that he took last time.
Maybe saying, I got so unlucky last game, still was able to take it out. There's no way it could happen again. So opting for the Dynamax, could really pay off. First, Venusaur, of course, with that sun, gets to go, and Landorus does wake up. It pays off. Gets to fire up a huge Max Quake here. The gamble was worth it, and Torkoal is going to be taken out.
You got to buy a ticket to win the raffle, and Felipe really won the raffle on that turn, taking home the grand prize of an Awake Thunderous, landing a Max Quake into the Torkoal, getting rid of the Torkoal entirely, and then just being able to, start putting pressure down. This really a great turn. Of course, the Sleep Powder is available again. There's no change in the weather right away, so this, this Venusaur could cause some problems. But a really big turn there for Felipe. When I saw him Dynamaxing it, I thought it was a little bit crazy, but clearly he knew better than me.
Sometimes crazy is just how you have to go. And we saw how many turns he got away with Dynamax in the first turn, not being able to capitalize off of it and just willing to take the risk. But sometimes the risk pays off, and Ben definitely put in a weird situation. That Torkoal put in so much work for him in the first match, even though it was unable to quite get that win. So losing it right out of the gate is definitely hard to take. And Hatteran's now hitting the field, but it's going to be facing down against this Landorus and doesn't have its comfort of Trick Room.
No, it's definitely going to be an interesting one. Ben, we can see what he's going for. He knows what he needs to do to this Landorus, and he's hit the first two, so why not keep on going and keep trying to kind of land those attacks. Two premium Gigantamax targets on Ben's side of the field as well. But there's the Sleep Powder, there's the Landorus, guaranteed to be wasting at least one turn of its Dynamax asleep. Ben's not having it. You can have it once, but you can't have it again.
We'll have to see how the next turn plays out, but at least with putting the Landorus to sleep, it puts the Hatteran in a position where it can just hit a free Dazzling Gleam to start getting some chip damage. And Spencer's in a bit of a weird spot. Everything's already asleep, so it might even be an opportunity to go for a Dynamax, but there's two candidates out on the field here.
There's two very good options, and they both have fantastic G-Max moves available to them as well. So a lot of options. I think Ben very wisely thinking about things in the menu here. Felipe probably starting to look for a switch. You can't just sit on the field and allow something like this Venusaur to pop up the boosts that it might want. So maybe thinking about a switch for the Grimmsnarl, or the Grimmsnarl just trying to wake up. The Landorus, of course, is last turn of Dynamax. You got the one turn sleep before, so I'd imagine that's going to stay on the field and just try and wait this one out. But no switching immediately, as Ben finally revealing one of his Gigantamaxes, the two real focal points of this team. And in this game, it's going to be given the honours to the Venusaur. Something we haven't seen for a little bit, and something I think that waned in popularity coming into Players' Cup 4.
I'm excited we finally get to see it join the party, though. And of course, moving oh so quickly, gets the opportunity to fire off the Max Ooze into the Sleep Grimmsnarl, getting a nice amount of chip, getting a nice special attack boost on itself as well as its partner Hatteran here. And no switch from Felipe means that the Pokemon get an opportunity to sleep up, but no wake up this time around. Landorus not so fortunate, and Grimmsnarl also going to keep snoozing. So free expanding force from the Hatteran into the Landorus here, though it's not really going to be dealing too much damage.
Not that much damage down on the Landorus, and of course no damage down onto the Grimmsnarl. So maybe a Dazzling Gleam could have been the preferred option there, but trying to take advantage and get some damage down on the Landorus. Big though for the Venusaur to grab one of those special attack boosts, helping out against that earlier light screen from the Grimmsnarl, making things a whole lot more manageable. And now this Landorus's Dynamax is over, it's even more manageable when it comes to trying to take it out. The Venusaur has 2 more turns of its Dynamax, running out of turns in the Sun though, where it can take advantage of the Chlorophyll. So it just needs to be a little bit conscious of that and how it can kind of play through that. But just to make sure that this pairing can break through the light screen, Ben very committed to these max oozes, and I think that's going to help him out a lot as this Grimmsnarl is finally felled.
Of course, being able to pick up all this special attack boosts is just going to prove useful, both in getting through the screen as well as behind the screen, and being able to just maximize the amount of damage this Hatterene is able to do to the still sleeping Landorus. So Felipe's luck unfortunately ran out with that Burster Wicket the last time around, and is unable to do it again as this Landorus is also going to be felled here.
Nice targeting there from Ben, making sure that the Grimmsnarl is removed, and then of course you're able to just go completely after that Landorus with the Hatterene. So down to the last 2 for Felipe. Long sleeps really hurting him in the course of this game, and Ben identifying that may be something he needed to work on coming into game 2. Yes, you lost the Torkoal early, but this Venusaur just completely chilling out and being able to sit there and do some great work. Porygon 2 in the back, so the Trick Room option available here for Ben. And as soon as the sun ran out for Ben from his earlier Torkoal selection, Felipe brings the Torkoal in and gives it to him for free. So this Venusaur still moving very, very fast.
Of course, why use your own Torkoal when you can just use your opponent to set up the sun for you? The timing worked out, being able to double target and take down both of the threats and allowing the Venusaur to capitalize off of the sun yet again. Fantastic. But I mean, it won't be able to capitalize too much if this Porygon 2 is able to get a Trick Room set.
The Trick Room goes up, this Venusaur's in big trouble very, very quickly. So it does need to be a little more conscious of that and maybe think about that while playing around. Of course, the Hatterene does have options to Trick Room itself. Could maybe try the reverse, the Uno reverse card, where you change the Trick Room back immediately after your opponent's done it. But Venusaur using its final turn of Gigantamax for that signature move, Gmax Vine Lash.
I'm glad that Ben finally went for the Vine Lash. Of course, the special attack boosts from Ooze are so good, but that residual damage is more important. But Porygon 2 going instead for a recover, so not going for the Trick Room, healing up that damage, and it is... I mean, it's going to stick around as Hatterene targeted into it as well, but no targets into the Torkoal means the Torkoal is free to fire off an attack, takes down the Hatterene. It's unable to quite bring down the Venusaur, but definitely doing a lot of damage.
Yeah, getting good damage down. Don't forget that Venusaur's about to run out of Gigantamax turns as well, so it's going to be in a slightly stickier position when it comes to trying to deal that damage. The Indeedee coming in there at full health, really being able to buy a turn or two maybe with the Follow Me's. We'll be resetting the terrain so that Expanding Force comes back into play as well. And with no Trick Room and honestly the Dynamax Gigantamax ending, the sun is still up for Venusaur. Venusaur could just try and control the game the way it did the early game. Going to have access to the Sleep Powder again, going to be able to cause problems that way. Just needs to be respectful of this Torkoal a little bit and how to play around that, make sure that doesn't get enough attacks off. But I think the Porygon 2 there just, trying to stick around so it can see what the end game looks like, and if it does want to set up a Trick Room for this Torkoal, or if the Torkoal could just do it of its own accord.
Of course. Though it's definitely a weird position. I mean, you can't disrespect the Torkoal and not target into it, but you can't disrespect the pressure that the Porygon 2 has with the Trick Room, so a little bit of a weird position here for Ben.
This is going to be a very impactful turn if you make the right call, and I think the onus is on Ben to make the correct call. Predict the protects, make sure you don't waste any turns, and just make sure that your opponent isn't able to set up for the end game that they want. If he's called this Torkoal Protect properly, which I believe he has by targeting down the Porygon 2 with the Frenzy plan, that should be game, set, and match. As I just don't see the Torkoal being able to just keep going without something like the benefit of the Trick Room while it's getting worn down by this Vine Lash.
Yeah, Porygon 2 being taken out is definitely something that hurts a little bit, but this point, the Frenzy Plant to take down the Porygon. The Venusaur can't attack or protect this turn, so it'll come down to the Indeedee and what it can actually make happen.
The Indeedee's guaranteed to be able to land 2 attacks, though, on this Torkoal. Because of the Focus Sash, even if the Torkoal can hit it really, really hard, it's going to be given another opportunity. Add that to the between turns ferocious beatings from the vines. So Indeedee should actually be able to tidy it up. It does have its own terrain set up as well, so being able to do even more damage with its one offensive move in Expanding Force should be able to help out. But Venusaur kind of just left, forced to recharge in this one. We're going to get a peek, though, at how much Indeedee is going to start doing to this Torkoal. And yep, that's going to be enough to get it on the next turn.
Yeah, that's a whole lot of damage, and not a whole lot of damage being dealt back, of course, does pick up the KO on the Venusaur, but isn't going to matter as, I mean, it's being brought right down to the red and is going to be outsped.
Yeah, this Indeedee could just land another Expanding Force or just wait till the end of the turn and make sure, of course, that you get it with the Vine Lash. So, a couple options for Indeedee. Ben just needs to lock in the move and then be moving on to game number 3. So a nice comeback from game number 1, really mixing up the strategy very, very efficiently there. And for once, we get to see Indeedee going the offensive to wrap up a game. That's a nice little treat for us.
I mean, it's about Indeedee. It's about time Indeedee had its time to shine. I mean, always there with the helping hand and the follow me and supporting its partner Pokemon and being able to bring Ben to a victory here to be putting this onto a game 3. So congratulations, Indeedee. And I mean, like we said, that means we're going to get a game 3.
Yeah, this is a best of 1 to stay in the tournament now. Once you've gone through those first 2 games, both trainers revealed a little bit of how they wanted to play. No Trick Room really a factor in game number 2, and Ben actually being able to play without this Trick Room that his team is very heavily built around, leaning into that Torkoal Venusaur option that he had really, really well. I mean, landing 3 Sleep Powders, absolutely huge, and being able to land a second one on the Landorus after that first turn Wake Up, really, really important. I love that Felipe went for it. I love that he just said, yep, I still want to hit you with Dynamax Landorus, but it just didn't pan out, going right back to sleep in the following turn. So nice adaptation from Ben, and now the onus moves over to Felipe. Well, what do you do against this Torkoal Venusaur that was so impactful? He didn't see Torkoal, obviously it switched in, but could you make a more aggressive play to deal with that?
Just letting the Venusaur do what it wanted with the Sleep Powders in the sun is definitely just a tricky situation. So everything on his team being outsped, not a good spot. So it'll be interesting to see how this game 3 is being navigated. So let's get into this game 3. I mean, like I said, I love the max undersleep, but unfortunately, despite the wake up, it didn't quite work out. So there has to be a change, and a change it is. That Landorus is going to come back out, but something that doesn't get sleep powdered is his own Venusaur.
Yeah, the Venusaur on Felipe's side actually going to be able to kind of put pressure onto Ben to say, well, if you bring Torkoal, I'm going to be able to just start using my own Venusaur to cause problems. So you have to be respectful of that, and also you can't put it to sleep. So that's a huge help, and we could end up with quite a nasty Venusaur mirror, you know, if there's Sun involved. And I think Ben kind of being forced to not even consider it at this time, just because you don't want to give such a huge boost to your opponent. So really kind of tough for him there to be able to deal with that.
Yeah, that's one of the things with playing a mirror is, especially with setting the weather, you don't want to be helping your opponent out more than you are yourself. So no swap from Felipe either. And there being the potential there, going for the U-turn, but it hits into the Indeedee, and Felipe actually doubling into that with a sleep powder. So nothing happening for Felipe here except for his own Landorus taking his snooze.
Yeah, Landorus are not able to do anything again on the following turn. Really nice protect on Indeedee there, eating up 2 attacks, not letting the Landorus out, most importantly. The Landorus was trying to get away from that with the U-turn, but going into that protect, meaning it doesn't get to switch out, does get caught with the sleep powder, and the Venusaur tries it on with the Indeedee and just gets caught into the protect as well. So a huge use of a move like that. You know, you don't really have that many move slots available on Indeedee, and being able to give one up for protect, really, really helpful there.
Of course, but you can only protect for so long. The inevitable comes out, and Felipe goes for another sleep powder, this time getting to connect, but in return is also going to get sludge bomb.
The Venusaur caught the Sludge Bomb. So yeah, we've got one sleeping Pokemon on each side, one Venusaur on each side, just trying to do as much damage as possible. Certainly going to cause some problems there. I like that, Venusaur on Felipe's side did just put the Indeedee to sleep, kind of respecting the potential follow me play. I think you have to remove that for a little bit. And this could be a good opportunity for Felipe to try and get back into the game. His Landorus has already been asleep for 2 turns, looking even closer and closer to that guaranteed wake-up as well. Just need to play around that. And Ben really needs to start landing some damage while this Landorus is still asleep, because otherwise it's going to wake up, then it's going to be able to Dynamax on you, and then it's going to be able to cause a whole host of problems.
Of course, you got it. You already have this advantage of something being asleep, so got to take it. But Felipe going for the max first, I mean, not wanting Ben to put the pressure on it before he can, and is going to be maxing the Venusaur this time around. Not going to gamble on the Landorus, but instead putting the pressure on with this Gigantamax Venusaur.
I like that. Really nice adaptation from them there to finally use something else. The Landorus does wake up though, so it could have got away with it, and the Landorus is going to get away from a potential follow-up Sleep Powder. Huge damage down on that Indeedee, and this is going to be quite easy to get picked up a little bit later on. But now, after seeing the turn and a little bit of the turn, Felipe gets to pivot and change something up, knowing a little bit more about the game plan as well.
And to change it up is going to be switching that Landorus out into the Porygon 2. And going to fire off a Max Ooze just to do some more damage onto this Indeedee here, and a special attack boost onto itself as well as its partner.
Special attack boost is not going to hurt that Porygon either. May make those try attacks even more powerful. And the Sleep Powder missing. When you're relying on keeping your opponent's side of the field asleep, you need to hit all of those attacks. And one miss could be absolutely crucial. So Ben's Venusaur not putting in the same shift. Felipe mixing it up, saying, you know what, I don't want to play the Sleep Powder game anymore. I just want to deal huge damage. And being able to land that really, really helpful. So Felipe moving a little bit into an advantage there, I think. Just being able to, keep the Indeedee asleep and then start landing big attacks. The Porygon getting in completely scot-free as well.
100%. And now, just another Max Ooze to be cleaning up this Indeedee. I mean, at this point, there's been so many Sleep Powders a hit. Something had to miss. It's not the most accurate move. The fact that it's been hitting so often, the luck had to run out, and fortunately for Felipe, it ran out right there twice in a row. This Porygon 2 is able to miss this Sleep Powder, and now gets to fire off a huge special attack boosted into the Venusaur and take it out. So this Porygon 2 critical hit, special attack boosted, didn't fall asleep. This is not good for Ben.
That's a bad miss. Being able to, lose that Venusaur really hurts. It was getting boosts from the Maxus. The Ice Beam there is a threat. Doesn't have to worry about the Cobra Berry or anything like that. Just able to kind of just go for it and get the knockout. And that's why, it looked like the Maxus was maybe a little bit safe coming from Felipe's side, just making sure it was hitting every time, not trying to land that Vine Lash. But, the boosts onto the Porygon 2 were so impactful. And that double knockout, actually really big, I think, for Felipe. It now reveals the last 2 Pokemon coming in from Ben's side, and Ben has kind of tried to call the bluff here. Kind of trying to say, well, I think you're going to play a Trick Room mode. I'm going to bring my 2 Trick Room options without Trick Room of my own. He didn't bring that anywhere in there, and he's bought this Torkoal Glastrier, but he's not going to have the setup. So yes, he is going to have some good damage. This Venusaur could get hurt by both of these Pokemon, but they're not going to be moving first. They're not going to be playing in Trick Room, and this Porygon 2 isn't going to give it to them.
Oh, for sure. And this Venusaur is still so healthy. This Porygon 2 has avoided everything coming its way. And there's still 2 healthy Pokemon in the back. So Felipe able to just take out the lead and get to the last 2 Pokemon while still having another turn of Dynamax to be capitalizing off of it. It's definitely just putting him in the driver's seat heading into this endgame, and just has all of the pressure.
Now, Ben being forced into Dynamaxing one of these 2 Pokemon if he wants to remain in the tournament. Knowing these are his last 2, he needs some big damage coming out from these, and the best way to do that is max moves. The Glastrier obviously going to be the Pokemon of choice. If Ben's going to stay in this game, he's going to need some Chilling Neigh boosts. He's going to need to not take too much damage, or just be able to completely weather the storm. But this Venusaur is going to be able to make things really difficult for them with the Vine Lash. Look how much that does after the special attack boosts.
that attack isn't even very effective and does so much damage, and being able to yet again set a move that has residual damage on the last turn of Max. So super big, and Porygon 2 just following up with a KO onto the Torkoal, getting it out. So all of these Pokemon are going to have to face down against this one Pokemon on Ben's side. It does get the opportunity to be going for a Max Hailstorm into Felipe's Venusaur and reset the weather, but I think it might be a little too late. But it does have 3 turns of Max.
It's got 3 turns of Max. It's now got a Chilling Neigh boost as well. That Chilling Neigh boost easily removed as soon as Landorus shows back up. And of course, the Porygon just sitting very comfortably, being able to just throw down some damage. Of course, the Ferocious Beating from Vine Lash is going to look a lot worse against this Dynamax. Just not able to put down the same amount of pressure that it would against a non-Dynamax Pokemon. A little bit of chip between turns never hurt anyone. The Chilling Neigh boost immediately removed, and this Landorus probably feeling pretty good about its chances to leave due to there's another Pokemon in the back, but you want to make sure that you're keeping this in check. You don't want the boosts to run away, because Glastrier is being asked to take 4 knockouts, and to do that, it's going to need all of its boosts it can get, and it's going to need perfect targeting every time.
At least it's gotten 1 out of 4 so far, so still has 2 turns of Max, 3 Pokemon to take out, and if it can take, like, if this targeting can be correct to start taking a KO or 2 and start rolling away with the boost, it could be definitely really dangerous. But Ben definitely has his work cut out for him, and you can tell that with how he's filtering through the menu, and no switch coming out at all. Landorus risking everything, just firing off a Rock Slide, but that means it connects. There's a weakness policy boost, so there's no horse being put in check here. Instead, this horse is now having the opportunity to hit a big Max Quake into this Porygon, but it does weather it.
It's just not enough, even after the boost. What Ben was trying to find there was the incoming Torkoal potentially in the back, trying to catch that out on the way in, and assuming that the Landorus would switch out or protect, just to keep itself safe. Really didn't pay off, as that had been maybe an Icicle Spear turned into obviously Max Hailstorm. Could have been picking up the knockout there, taking away that potential Intimidate. But I think the misstep on that turn may have just cost Ben. The Porygon doing so much damage with that Tri-Attack, boosted twice by the Max Ooze, has turned it into a really big offensive threat, and just not being able to get close to the knockout, even after the weakness policy. Really, really problematic there. So I don't think Glastrier has enough, but at least Ben was trying this one on, trying to force something out of this game, but Felipe just says, no, I don't think you're going to go after the Landorus. Weaves in a little bit of damage there, knows the Porygon can take it too, and just is able to make this Glastrier look very, very weak. This is the last turn of Matt, and this is a whole lot to do for this Glastrier.
I mean, that definitely helps, though. A miss right off the bat from the Landorus, but these Tri-Attacks from this boosted Porygon are adding up. And another Max Quake coming out is going to be picking up the KO, but this Basher is looking not so great, and there's still 2 threats to be taken out.
This is going to be really tough, as the Dynamax is ending on this Glastrier. Really struggling to, deal with that, and I think with the Vine Lash coming in between turns as well, it's going to be a big problem. In one more turn, any damage in this turn will just get it. At least you get to see Felipe's 4th Pokemon. The confirmation there that is trying to call it earlier was right, that it is of course going to be the Torkoal coming in. If that had been caught maybe by something like the Max Quake, and you were able to get the knockout there after that weakness policy boost, could have been a wildly different game. But Glastrier just not given enough in the tank to do it. You're just not going to be able to hit both of these Pokemon. No spread moves available, and one of them is going to get any little bit of chip that will make sure that Glastrier falls at the end of this turn. So Torkoal doesn't want to be the one to do it, wants to give the honors over to Landorus, who's going to take its time.
Not wanting to risk a Rock Slide miss, is going to get out of there. No miss, as well as avoiding the Icicle Spear. And I mean, this is just going to go down to the Vine Lash anyway, so well played. I mean, that was a tall order for the Glastrier there, but had to be taking out a KO.